Hello everyone, today's poem is 九日蓝田崔氏庄 by 杜甫, a poem about the Double Night Festival, or Chang'an, which is September 9th in lunar calendar. And also this poem is a very fine example of the poetry type 七律, the 7-character line with 8 sentences. The 七律, this type of poetry is the highest, the finest form of writing patterns created and founded in the Tang dynasty. And this type of poetry was treated as the highest level or maturity of the Tang poetry. This poem describes the situation when Du Fu went one of his friends' family in the Double Night Festival, and the place is quite famous. Lantian, if with hard translation, the blue field, the famous well river, which was described by Wang Wei many times, was in this area. And we also had the very famous poem by Li Shangyin, 锦瑟 蓝田玉暖, so it also refers this place. And another one by Han Yu, 雪拥蓝关马步前, the blue gateway, the blue blockish castle. So it also refers to this place because this place is the gateway to the southeast China from the capital city, and basically it's roughly 30 kilometers from the capital city, Chang'an. And a lot of the rich people or noble people, they have their villa in this area, like Wang Wei. And Cui Shi Zhuang, so a villa of the Cui family. So we have no idea who of this Cui family it is. It has two possibilities. One is a local people and as a local governor, so they have their house, family house there. So Du Fu paid a visit to this family. And also it has a possibility where noble, which very high-ranking officers' villa in this area, Cui Jiu. So we have another Du Fu's poem, Cui Jiu Tang Qian Ji Du Wen. So that Cui Jiu doesn't live here, but he might have a villa here. So the title is very clear. 九日蓝田崔氏庄, 九日, the nights of the date. So whenever you saw this term 九日 in the Tang poetry or in the classic poetry, it always refers to the Double Night Festival. Remember that. So 九日蓝田崔氏庄, it didn't mention what's it about, but everybody knows Du Fu's home is not here, and he definitely is telling something. He pay a visit to this place, the place of Lantian, and to his family, with the family name Cui, to his house or villa. And for it's a festival, the Double Night Festival. For sure, they will have parties, and they definitely will have a track to the high places where possibly they will climb up to the South Mountain, because this place is just at the foot side of the South Mountain. Okay, let's talk about the poem now. 九日蓝田崔氏庄，杜甫。老去悲秋强自宽，幸来今日尽君欢。老去 so I'm getting old, and in this very sad autumn, I had to pretend myself happy. I had to comfort myself. 强自宽 I had to. 幸来今日尽君欢 So I pretend to be happy and coming here today. So this tells us Du Fu lived somewhere else, and he's coming along maybe from the capital for 30 kilometers distance and get to this countryside, to this villa, 崔氏庄. So he come here pretending to be very happy. 尽君欢. So 尽君欢 could be interpreted two ways. So I enjoy the happy with you all together. And from the normal sense, it also can be translated as I come here to help you all to enjoy your happiness. So here has a little implication that in this sad season, he feels sad as well. And from the first sentence, it also implies 强自宽, I had to comfort myself. I had to pretend myself to be happy. So this tells us at this time, Du Fu not living a very good life. So I had to do a lot of this research, but I cannot identify when Du Fu write this poem. And most probably, this poem was written before the Civil War. So Du Fu lived in the capital city for more than 10 years or for 10 years. And the turning point is the Civil War. So with my study after Civil War, Du Fu has never spent his autumn time in the capital city. So that's why most probably this poem was written before the Civil War. So here is a question. Before the Civil War, actually he's not so old. He's roughly a little bit over his 40s. But we know he got hair white and short in his very early age. So from this poem, we know Du Fu actually lead a very poor and humble life all through his lifetime. When he get to the capital city, Chang'an, try to get a job in the central government. And this could be convinced from another poem wrote roughly 2 or 3 years later of this poem, after the Civil War. So he was still in capital city, and he wrote the famous poem 春望, looking in the springtime. So in that poem he said 白头搔更短. So I got all my hair white, and I scratch my hairs and make my hairs shorter, much shorter. So we know from these two poems, we know he got a white hair, and his hair became less and less and short in his early time, around his 40s. 休将短发还吹帽，笑欠旁人为正官。休将 I'm so shy, so I hold my short hairs even I was holding my hair. Actually, here refers to his holding his hat. My hat was blown off from my head. 笑请旁人为正官. So I laughed by others. And I asked my friends to put the hat on my head and tighten it. And so here there's two things. The hat is quite a very important thing because different hat resemble the different position or social levels of the Tang people. So when you go out of your home, you should always have the right hat tightened above your head. And especially Du Fu was just over his 40s and his hair got white and short. So this is something he wants to cover up as well. Anyhow, the wind blows off his head. So this is a very, very embarrassment for Du Fu as well. And from this poem, it also refers to a very old story several hundred years ago that it's a similar situations, one where high-ranking official's head was blown off. In normal sense, it's a shame, it's an embarrassment, but that one take this as nothing, and he was very proud because he has very self-sufficient. He's a very pride person. He changed this embarrassment into a self-pride. So if we think about the old story compared to the real situations, the things happened on Du Fu and how he write about. So actually here is self-mocking, the Du Fu self-mocking. He was want to cover up his white hair, his short hair, and he really don't want to have this embarrassment, this shame on him. But it happened finally. So he just laughed, to use the laughing to cover up his embarrassment. When we read the poems wrote by Du Fu in his youth time, we know Du Fu was a talented person with strong character, with extremely self-pride. But with this poem, everybody can feel that his character was so weak. He has no self-pride, and he always be careful to avoid something happened on himself to hurt himself. So why has such a huge change to Du Fu's character? So just imagine, when he wrote this poem, he spent roughly 5 or 6 years in the capital city, and the only purpose is to get into the central government, to get a position, to serve the country, to serve the emperor. But till this time, he achieved nothing. So that's most probably the main reason he lost all his pride and he became weak. 蓝水远从千涧落，玉山高并两峰寒。The Lan River comes down from far, far away from the southern small creeks, and finally they join to this Lan River and rushing along the side of this villa. 玉山高并两峰寒. The Jade Mount was so high, and the most high mountains, two mountains, it looks so cold. But in reality, I've been here for many times. It's not two mountains. It's a huge mountain crossed from from east to west, and for several hundred kilometers. So there's so many mountains in this huge mountain, South Mountains. But here, actually, I think Dufu is for the antithesis sake. That's one of the key rules for the qilü, for this type of poetry. We can see 千涧, 1,000 creeks, 两峰, 2 months. So that's a wonderful, perfect antithesis writing. So here, but above, Dufu is use 4 sentences describing something happened at the very near side, in front of everybody's eyes, something about himself. And now he extends his eyesight to something far away, the Blue River, coming down from far, far away. And the Jade Mountain was standing far away to the south and feels cold. So the dropping and cold also is negative words. So this implies a little bit negative feelings of the poet Dufu himself. But the previous is not negative. He's looking into the distance of the Blue River, and the mountain stands very, very high. That's very positive. So he used this negative and positive words to give you some contrast, and then let you feel the strength. And finally, all this tends to be some strength within and positive within. So start from this paragraph. He extend his eyesight to far away. The tune became positive. 明年此会知谁见？醉把茱萸仔细看。Next year, when we meet again at this place, who would still live and can get to this place? 醉把茱萸仔细看。醉, so we're all drunk all over. So I take the flower of 茱萸 and look it carefully. The first sentence is quite simple. Even in a very happy festival day, but the spirits of Dufu is quite low because he didn't have a good life for several years and he achieved nothing at all. And but the time is passing by, and he's quite low in his spirit. So he worried, if I was still here next year. In the surface, he's asking who would be here next year, who would be still alive next year. But actually, this question is to himself. Can I or would I still be here alive next year? So his signs on his bad luck and his bad health, maybe. And the second sentence is a little difficult. 茱萸 is a type of flower, especially for this Double Night Festival. So people will put this flower on the hair, on the clothes. That will may help the people to avoid the bad luck, to avoid some of the evil things. But finally, it has in the Tang Dynasty, it became a very, very strong associate strongly with thinking about family members and relatives. So here, there's two things. 杜甫 was drunk, and in this festival, there's a must to drink chrysanthemum flower wine. The chrysanthemum flower wine means long life. So we can see 杜甫deliberately don't mention the chrysanthemum flower, and he get too drunk directly. He didn't mention the long life things, and he looked at the 茱萸 flower. The 茱萸 flower at the very beginning, it means to avoid bad luck, to avoid evil things. But finally, in the Tang Dynasty, it became a symbol for the memorized to recall, to think about his family members, his best friends. So the question is, 杜甫, the poet, he looked at the 茱萸 flower very carefully. So who was worried by 杜甫? Some other people? His family members? Or maybe himself? So I would more likely take it as 杜甫 was more worried about himself. When we look back the whole poem, the first paragraph, it expresses a little bit or implies a little bit 杜甫 was in a bad situation, and he had some self-mocking on himself. He had to join this happy party. He has to get to this villa to join the happy people. Anyhow, he don't feel happiness. And starting from the second paragraph, the first two sentences, it still revealed that he was still with great visions, because in the classic Chinese poetry, looking to the far distance is always implies this guy has a great visions, but this great vision has some sadness. The mountain is cold, and the river is so far, far away. It's something unreachable by 杜甫, or his goal is unreachable. After he stayed in the capital city for 5 or 6 years, he achieved nothing. And the final two sentences quite unusual in 杜甫's poem. He expressed the sadness of himself, because we know 杜甫 was always famous or renowned for his careness to the average people. And in this poem, we can see 杜甫, the worries or the sadness expressed is only about himself. And this is also one of the major reasons I think this poem was written before the Civil Wars, because since the Civil Wars, all the poems 杜甫 wrote about is the sadness of the people. Even he writes something about himself, the sadness, the poor life about himself, but he always extends that feeling to the average people, to the country. But in this poem, all the feeling is is 100% concentrated on his own life experience, on his own feelings. Okay, that's for today. And I wish you all have a happy Double Night Festival. 重阳节快乐，拜拜。